Hey guys. Okay,
Well, hello there. Hello there.
I saw you smile at the camera and I was like, oh no. Hey guys, I'm Chase Smith. This is Nigel Robinson. You're listening to Hyperlink, a podcast journey. Today we journey through Genesis chapter 10. We'll be looking at the lineage of Noah. From cursed grandchildren to blessed firstborns, we'll see how this story rekindles the flame of chaos in the world. Enjoy. Here it goes again.
Here it goes again. Isn't that a song?
It is.
It is a song. Here it goes. All right. Here it goes. All right. Well, let's talk about some of the groundwork episodes. We're going to call back to our second episode, Parallels and Order, right? In that episode, what we talk about? We talked about the flood being part of a larger thematic theme throughout the Bible, and it connects all the way back from creation all the way up to Jesus. And do you remember what the theme was that we pulled out, Chase, from Parallels and Order?
It's been a minute.
It's okay. It has been a while.
Our podcast journey.
We've journeyed a little way since then. It was the theme of how God brings order out of chaos, right? The water elements, and there's always water involved. There's always certain elements involved. In fact, the elements start off like this. There's always chaos, and then there's water. So in Genesis, right, it says the earth was formless and void.
Mm-hmm.
That word, we talked about that, meaning what it meant, like chaotic nothingness.
Yes.
So chaos, and
like
then
that.
waters, and then the spirit was over the waters, and then God always speaks. And then from all the way through all these different stories we talked about, God speaks. And then there's expected order after God speaks, which makes sense because God spoke. So there's expected action and to adhere to his words. Then there's a testing to see if man will actually adhere to what God had just spoken.
Yes.
Typically the speaking is like a covenant or something like that. And then there's what we always get until Jesus is a tragedy. Now, if you haven't listened to that episode, do go back. It's fantastic. But because of that, of course, the flood, the chaos in the flood story is obvious. The words in the flood story, what we already went through, but the words were simple. There's only evil. Man's inclination was only evil all the time, which is like crazy chaos words to me. Man's inclination was only evil all the time. But then, right, there's a large amount of water and the spirit, right? So the spirit, it says the ruach. Did I say it right?
Ruach.
Ruach. That's better. A little
Ruach.
better. I'm getting better. The spirit actually was, it says that the same word as the wind came and blew over the waters, but that word for wind is ruach, which is the same word for spirit in the beginning. So it's connecting back, right? And then, so in the end of the flood, which we just capped off the flood part 2, right? The deep dive. So at the end of the flood, what should be expected? If we're going through the elements, you have chaos, you have waters, you have the spirit, you should expect what? God to speak, right? We should expect order or like somebody to try and keep what God's speaking. And what I like the way that it says in Genesis 2. Because in Genesis 2, it really says man was given to guard the garden. And we talked about that way back. But to guard the garden. And I think it's like man is meant to guard the order that God creates. Like that's part of our job. A man right with God should be guarding the order that God creates. And what happens? I guess we should expect a tragedy, right? Or maybe this is the one that's to break the mold, if you will. So not only does the flood parallel or hyperlink back to the 7 days of creation, as we mentioned in our flood part 1 episode, it also hyperlinks back to how God brings order out of chaos. And then what happened in Genesis 3, Chase?
That was the fall of man.
Yeah, it's not a trick question.
I was like, is this a trick question?
It's not a trick question. The fall.
I was like, I know my Bible.
You do. That's why I'm asking. That's why you're here. It's the fall of man, right?
Yeah.
So there was expected obedience, there was temptation, and then there was tragedy and chaos. once again enters the world. So if we are detecting a pattern here, what elements should we find in the next story after the flood, or you can call the new creation? What elements should we have?
Probably the same thing.
And some of those elements are
water.
Well, after the flood, after the water, after all that.
Oh, we're talking about after the flood.
Yeah. Directly after the flood, after the water, after the Lord speaks. What should we have? We should have expected order.
Expected order, guarding.
A temptation. So if I told you we're going to read a biblical story about a garden, fruit, nakedness, covering of said nakedness, what would you assume? Genesis 3, right? There's a garden, there's fruit, there's nakedness, there's covering of said nakedness, right? All that happens, but that's not the story we're reading today. We're going to be in Genesis chapter 9, and we're going to start in verse 18. Mr. Chase, would you please read Genesis 9, verse 18, and we're going to go through 29. I might just stop you in the middle, though, because that's how I roll sometimes.
It's okay. I know you like to interrupt me.
Yeah, it's a problem sometimes.
I'm here for it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You got something to share? Now the sons of Noah who came out of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And Ham was the father of Canaan.
Wait, why is Canaan important?
Well, there's Canaanites later in the story.
And who are the original heroes of this story of the Genesis? Who are those people?
The heroes?
The original listeners.
Oh, listeners. Oh, yes. Well, I mean the children of Israel. And
the children of Israel when?
With Moses.
Yeah. And where are they headed?
Into the wilderness.
Well, where were they supposed to go before they decided to be stupid?
The land of milk and honey, the promised land.
Which is Canaan. So right here, we're getting the first ideas of the concept of Canaan, right? So that's just important. Put a pin in that, note that as a reader, as someone who's following along in the Bible, that's going to be important. We randomly get a child of one of the three sons. That's weird. So let's go.
Yeah. Perfect. These three were the sons of Noah, and from these the whole earth was populated. Then Noah began farming and planted a vineyard.
Like a garden?
Like a vineyard.
A vineyard
of grapes.
Yeah, but like a garden, they're similar. There's tending the ground. There's similar themes as we saw in Genesis chapter 3. Okay. And
vegetation.
But it's a vineyard. So what kind of vegetation is on a vineyard?
Grapes, fruit.
A fruit. Interesting. Keep going.
Yes. And after this, he drank of the wine and became drunk and uncovered himself inside his tent. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brothers outside. But Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it upon both their shoulders and walked backwards and covered the nakedness of their father. And their faces were turned away so they did not see their father's nakedness. When Noah awoke from his wine, he knew what his youngest son had done to him. So he said, "Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants. He shall be to his brothers." He also said, "Blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem, and let Canaan be his servant. May God enlarge Japheth, and let him dwell in the tents of Shem, and let Canaan be his servant." And Noah lived 350 years after the flood. So all the days of Noah were 950 years, and he died.
So there's a garden, there's fruit within the grapes that turn into wine, and what happens is someone partakes of the fruit, right? And what happens is that they give into a desire, right? And then there's nakedness, and there's covering of said nakedness. This is telling us a parallel story, which instead of man guarding order, man lets their desires overtake them. Right?
Yeah.
I may understand where Noah's coming from. Imagine Noah's life. Oftentimes we see characters in the Bible as not real, and we need to learn to see them as truly human. As a human, Noah was born into a world where everybody's inclination was only evil all the time.
Yeah.
So he had to have seen and experienced who knows what. Then God speaks to Noah, and Noah starts to build an ark, and people start to make fun of him. So he is bullied. He is all the things that come along with that. Tortured, who knows what's going on, and at least mentally, emotionally, right? And then there's a flood, and he sees everyone, like what he experiences during the flood, and all of those moments. Like, we can't imagine some of the things he actually went through in his life. So again, I'm not saying this is a pass to commit sin. I would never say that, but realize Noah's a human. And God called him righteous. Like, he stayed righteous. Like, there's like, he was righteous, and he saved literally like humanity. God used him to save humanity. He understands the grace of God maybe at a level we don't or could ever. Like, honestly, like, I know we have Jesus now, but he understands like being saved when no one else was.
Yeah. He also had like 10 to 11 of our normal lifetimes to do a lot of things.
Yeah.
So the fact that we're only reading one, I mean, guy needs a break.
Yeah. So again, I'm not gonna ever say there's an excuse to sin
Of
and
course.
getting drunk and all that. Yes, getting drunk, getting naked is a sin in that sense. Not getting naked, but getting naked because of drunkenness and all those things. They correlate to not being good. It's just not. It's not smart. It's unwise. Again, though, he definitely went through some stuff. So I can see why he might want to try to alleviate some of that pain, right? So Noah, he overindulges. He gives into a desire. Maybe he desired to just feel numb. Maybe he does, but he gives into a desire, and then we get nakedness. Which what does nakedness really symbolize? Like, obviously he was naked, but what does it symbolize throughout the biblical text typically?
I mean, it usually means. I go to when you're. Is it the nakedness itself or the awareness that you're naked? That's what I'm curious on.
Oh, that's a whole rabbit trail. What does nakedness itself typically symbolize?
Well, I think it typically signifies. Does it signify sin, or does it signify like the need of a covering? I mean,
yeah.
I think of that like husband and wife. There's so much there, but where are you?
Shame. Like,
Shame.
nakedness typically symbolizes
Yes, okay.
a type of shame.
Yes.
Like, there's a shame involved in the nakedness, right? And so there's this shame there.
Especially in a culture at this time, which was, I mean, I don't know about the Israelites and having been slaves, they were quite unclothed, but still, that was like, there's a tunic, there's layers. Like, having seen somebody naked was kind of a big deal because you did have so many layers to guard yourself. So
yeah, and so some scholars believe that there's several schools of thought on what happened with Ham. Like, what was the big deal with Ham? Like, what happened? So some say he just saw his father, and that he mocked his father. That when he went and told his brothers, he was mocking his father. He was making fun of his father, and in that's not honoring your father and mother. One of the 10 commandments is not honoring, and so he mocked his father. Definitely within the biblical text. Some believe, however, that Ham actually assaulted his father. There's several schools on how he assaulted him too. The one I'll talk about is they possibly castrated him, which is interesting.
I don't think I've heard that one.
Well, where do they get there? They have to get there from the text. These are Jewish scholars. These are people who've been studying the Torah for thousands of years, and so they get there with the text. And so why is because God wants, again, at the beginning in chapter 9, not in the beginning, but in the covenant God has with Noah, he says, go be fruitful and multiply, just like he told Adam and Eve. Does Noah ever have any more kids?
Not that that we know of.
We get the whole days and then he dies. We get no more kids.
Yeah.
That's why we read to that point. Like, he dies, so we get no more kids. So Noah's curses, and then who does Noah curse? Does Noah curse Ham?
He curses his son.
Ham's son. Like, his
Canaan.
grandson, right? His, like, as if, like, Noah could be, and this is maybe a leap for some of you, and it's okay, you don't have to believe it to get the teaching here, but this is just what some people believe, is that Noah cursed his son Canaan or his grandson Canaan, because Ham took his ability to have another son.
Yeah.
So you took my son, my last son from me. I'm gonna take your son from you. Yeah. I'm gonna curse your son, right?
Eye for eye, tooth for tooth. Basically.
Yeah, that kind of concept, right? So why curse the lineage unless he's getting him back for that? And that's kind of where that school thought starts at. Like, why is he even cursing Canaan anyway? Why doesn't he curse Ham?
Mhm.
But either way, whatever Ham did, it's bad. Like,
Yeah.
seeing the shame of someone and only making it worse is far from what God intends for humans to do.
Yes.
And
That's continuing the cycle.
And that's what Ham does, regardless of where it is, whether he assaulted him or whether he just mocked him. Seeing the shame of somebody and making it worse is far from the ideal human in God's mind, the ideal human nature.
Yeah.
Essentially, humans who just experienced the greatest act of grace the world had seen so far. And he goes and does this. And Noah does something here that we really need to highlight. He steps into the role that so far has only been reserved for God. So far in the story, who has been dealing out any curses?
God.
God, right? So far, God's the
For
only
our
one.
sake, by the way.
Yeah. But God's the only one who's been dealing out any kind of curses. He curses the ground, he curses the snake, curses several things. But God's the only one who's been dealing out any kind of curses. In fact, this word that is used for curse here with Noah cursing his grandson is only ever used in referring to God cursing something, except here in the entire Bible, Old Testament. It's wild. Like, Noah's literally stepping into a role that is reserved for God.
Wow.
So Noah decides it's his turn. And what does the Lord say? He says, vengeance is mine. That's what the Lord said. But Noah's like, no, vengeance is mine this time. Right?
Yeah.
Wow. So if there's a reason Noah does this, like if there's a reason Noah decides to step into the role of God, I mean, just a few chapters earlier, God calls him righteous. So obviously there's some kind of fall and things happening. But if there is a reason, where do you think we might be able to find it? If there's a reason Noah does this, steps into God's role.
Before. I was going to say pretext, but yes.
Yeah, the text.
Yeah.
Let's go back a little bit to Genesis chapter 9, verse 6.
6. Whoever sheds man's blood, by man his blood shall be shed. For in the image of God he made man.
Yes. Whoever sheds man's blood by, what does it say? How to say it? Whoever sheds man's blood,
by man his blood shall be shed.
By man his blood shall be shed. This is saying, like, whoever sheds blood by man, you shall now be judged. So this is literally a new part of the covenant with Noah. And God is adding that now, like, I don't, like he's saying man can judge man. So what man, though, is this really alluding to? Like, who is the man that will judge men?
I mean, Jesus.
This is the Ish, as we talked about in the Beast and the Ish. This is the Ish prophesied about in Genesis 3. Again, going back to the fall, right? Where this story parallels. This is the Ish, the one we've been waiting for. That's what God is alluding to. Like, he's kind of prophesying about. But this is a marked change in the story. Like, the story has a direct change in what information we are know about now. Now man is going to do that. So that man will restore the world and bring order to chaos. Noah so far is the best candidate we've had. His name literally means rest.
Yeah.
He's called righteous by God. He is a deliverer of sorts, right? Like, he does all of these amazing things. And even after his shame, he decides to take up the mantle, being the man to judge, trying his best to do what he believes is right, even though he did it in anger and it's vengeance. That's not what God does when he curses.
Yeah.
Like, that's like a juxtaposition to how God handles those things.
Yeah.
God doesn't curse out of vengeance. There's heartbreak behind it. Like, God regretted making man. There's a heartbreak. There's a reason the flood happened. You can call it a curse, but God was heartbroken. Like, God was like this. You read Genesis 3, you don't hear an angry voice from God. It's a father who's like, what happened?
Yeah.
But Noah is this anger, this vengeance.
It's a reaction.
Yeah. And I often think, like, why did Noah do that? Like, why did he go off the rails like that? And maybe it's because he just saw like God, like for who he is, which is a gracious God. And he knows God will deal graciously with Ham, so he's like, no. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe I'm inferring too much there.
Maybe.
But it's a thought.
Got a little wild in his hangover.
And maybe that's all it was. Maybe that's all. He just needed some gravy. I don't know.
Stuff to think about.
It is. It is.
Yeah. There's a interesting, like, when you plant a vineyard and you enjoy the fruits, like we're talking a few years at least, I'm assuming. But, there is a celebration usually that goes when you are partaking of the fruits of your labor, right? So it's interesting. I was just thinking earlier about how Noah is probably in this state of paradise rest. Like he's like, okay, kind of a garden state again, right? We're seeing vegetation. He's planted it. He's enjoying the fruits, which he's allowed to partake in because it's his garden, right? There's no like, don't eat the fruit. So he's enjoying that, and we see the enjoyment of fruit in a good context still go wrong, which is interesting. But also from a place, I would imagine he's like, oh, this is heaven. No one's here to bother me. No one's ridiculing me for building this boat, which I don't look crazy to anybody. It's just my family. They're probably starting to fill the earth. There's probably some grandbabies running around. Well, there are, obviously.
There's at least one.
There's at least one. I'm assuming more. But yeah, it's interesting how like he's in this state of rest, probably the state of celebration, the state of enjoyment, and then something sour comes out of it, that reaction. So it's interesting to see the ups and the downs in the story. For whatever that adds, it's interesting to me. Like it is life. Like we all have these moments. To add that, like Noah was a guy, he did some wrong stuff, he did some good stuff, and we're finding that like life. This is like another dude.
Yeah.
So,
and if you're following along with the story, and you're like, man, we've been waiting for this man, the seed of the woman. And Noah seemed such a great candidate, and then you get this story, and you're like, man, it's not Noah. It's not Noah. Like listening, you're like, I was hoping. And
you know what? That may be the point of including that in the story, even if it's just to say, hey, this is not it.
Yeah, he's not the one, right?
Which they probably know that by now, because the children of Israel have been in captivity, but still, the story goes.
Yeah, true. One thing that's interesting though is that Noah, like, who does he curse? His grandson, not the one who did the act, but somebody else. Like somebody not deserving of a curse gets cursed. So, wow. Like, what is that? What should that remind us of? Somebody getting a curse that doesn't deserve a curse. Somebody getting a curse that doesn't deserve it. Jesus. It's always the right answer.
Yeah.
You didn't know. Jesus is always the right answer.
No, but I do like dealing that out because it's like it's not wrong. It's definitely right.
It's definitely right. Yeah, like Jesus getting the curse that we deserve. Like we deserve the curse, and Jesus took that on himself. We talked about that with the flood, with the rainbow and the bow pointing up to the sky, right? Like Jesus is like over and over. We're getting this theme start to pop out of the scriptures that there is one who will get a curse that doesn't deserve a curse.
A son.
A son. And now we know it's a son will get a curse that doesn't deserve a curse. And it's just crazy. It's just crazy. And I don't know what's crazier to me, like that or the fact that like God actually honors Noah's curse. Like Noah curses Canaan, and like the Canaanites are always at enmity with the Israelites, and there's so much like things going on. Like God actually kind of honors the curse that Noah brought on Canaan, which to me, it speaks to the power of our words.
Yes, that's exactly where I was going to go with that. Like we have this is going to sound, I don't know if this sounds crazy, but like we all have the ability to create and destroy. Like life and death are in the power of the tongue. So what you choose to focus on, what you choose to speak out. So there's attention, and then there's speaking out and calling forth. Out of the heart, the mouth speaks. That's scripture later on. I believe in James. But there is this constant thing in life of cycles, and we see how, like, if we choose to focus on the bad and the wrong, and we react like Noah, then what we're doing is we're continuing the cycle. The whole purpose of what Jesus then does later is he shows in perfection how we can end the cycles, which is turn the other cheek. There's these, like, yes, there's more purpose there, but which I love how you describe that. I don't know if we've mentioned it yet, but there's a whole there's so much there.
That's for a later
episode. There's a little nugget for you. But I love how, like, Jesus shows us what's possible. That's why we're looking at this. There's, like, seems to be not so much hope, but the whole point is, in our context, is that there's hope coming, but it's showing us why we need it. And that there's these cycles, and then there's life and death in the power of our tongue. Even though in our fallen state, we think of ourselves as, like, these feeble creatures, we actually have so much importance in what we carry with us. And so what we do and don't do matters
so much. And there's a if you, like, want to actually see with your own two eyeballs the power of life and death in the tongue, you can do an experiment.
I love this.
Something
I've seen the pictures.
We've seen this. We did this with my family, with my kids. You take rice, you boil a bunch of rice. Like, it doesn't have to be a bunch, just some rice. You split it into 2 jars.
Perfectly white rice.
Perfectly white rice.
Yeah.
You split it into 2 jars, right? You put 1 jar and you just write good on it. Put 1 jar, you write bad on it. And every day you just walk up to the jar with good and you say things that are good, like loving, like, I love you, you're awesome, I hope you are amazing, have a great day. It sounds crazy.
You look beautiful.
Yeah, you look beautiful. You're amazing. Incredible. And then you go to the bad rice and you're like, I hate you. You're ugly. Like, why are you still here? And you speak negativity over the bad rice.
The one labeled bad.
Within a few days, I've done this experiment twice. Once with a control, a third one, which you didn't speak to at all. Within a few days, the one that you are speaking bad over starts to mold. And all you do is have them in an airtight jar on your kitchen counters or wherever you want to decide to put it. Airtight jar, little mason jar, airtight, boom, done. The one starts to mold. The other one that you speak life to doesn't. And we tried to wait. Like, we went weeks, I think like 2 months. And the one that we were speaking life to still had yet to mold.
That's crazy.
And the other one was, like, being eaten alive by mold. It was like
wild.
Diminishing in its amount of rice, because there's so much power in how you and in your words. There's so much power in what you say. There's so much power, and even if you don't mean it, because let's be honest, I wasn't really mad at the rice. I didn't even really mean it, but there's still power behind it, which is baffling. It still baffles me. Do the experiment. I promise you, you won't regret it. But let's keep moving, because on the flip side, what we have is something also incredible. We have Shem and Japheth cover up their father's nakedness or shame. Right now, Chase, does it take 2 people to put a blanket on a naked body?
No, I wouldn't think so.
So why do they both have to do this? What is going on here? Why is it written that way? I'm glad you asked. In Hebrew, when multiple people do a benevolent act, whichever has the idea first is listed first. Like, whichever had the idea is listed first in ancient Hebrew writings. So this is something that will come up a bit later and next episode, so you're going to want to listen to that one too. But here, it's the first time we see it. Shem is the one who comes up with the idea to cover the shame, the nakedness of his father. Which again is interesting, because in the story of Genesis chapter 3, who covers Adam and Eve's nakedness? God. Noah stepped into God's role in cursing, but Shem steps into God's role in covering of shame, of nakedness. That's powerful. Now, everyone following the story has to ask, Noah's not the one. Is it Shem? Is Shem the Ish now? The one God just talked about to judge men? The one Genesis 3:15 prophesies about? Is he the Ish? Is he the one? His name literally means name, which cracks me up. Like Shem means name.
Yeah.
Shem means name.
Yeah.
Reputation, it means fame, glory, renown. Like when you make your name famous, like that's a powerful name. That's kind of the connotation behind the name Shem. A man of renown, of good reputation, a man of fame. He surely has to be the one. Like his name literally is a man of fame, and it's a name. You want to be a man or woman of renown? Have compassion, cover shame, work in grace, inhabit the fruits of the Spirit. Become more like Messiah, more like the image of God. That's what Shem's doing here. He's partnering with God to help repair the brokenness of the world. And next episode, we're going to hit this even harder, but like it's seen right here. The only other option is to be Ham or Noah, working in vengeance or making shame worse. So he does seem to act more like God than anyone else so far, covering the nakedness. His idea to cover the nakedness of his father, the shame of his father. Talk about honoring your father. And what is that? That's the only. Did you know that's the only 10 commandments with the blessing behind it?
Mm-hmm.
And what's the blessing?
Long life.
Yeah, honor your father and mother, and it will go well with you in the land that you live. And what's Noah's blessing to Shem? It's essentially that.
Yeah.
And he's the one to honor his father, while Ham, I'm telling you, I believe that 10 commandment is calling back to this moment.
Yeah.
It's hyperlinking back.
Absolutely.
Like they're like, oh, honor your father and mother, and it'll go well with you in the land. Isn't that kind of what Noah told Shem after he honored him by covering up his nakedness and his shame? A few things this story shows us is that this man, Noah, is not the gardener or the one to guard the order. He's not the guardian of the order anymore. And that actually all of man obviously can't do it, but God says the man's going to do it. So what's going to happen? Yet that like man's potential to restore order is still there. Like he might not be able to guard it, but man's potential to restore it can still be there.
Yeah.
So good, right? So as we move on, like we have to ask, will chaos reign or will order begin to grow? So in chapter 10, we get a genealogy. Go ahead and pick up. We're going to start in chapter 10. But before we go there, chapter 10, verse 6, I believe. Before we go there, it starts with Japheth. And we're going to skip over Japheth's part of the genealogy. But that's interesting because Japheth, what order of son was he? Was he the first, second, or third born?
Third as far as we know,
Yeah.
because he's listed third.
He's listed third, but we start with his genealogy, which makes no sense in genealogy. You don't start with the youngest son. You start with the oldest son, which is Shem, and Ham's the middle son. But why are we starting with Japheth? Like, you have to ask these kind of questions. Like, why is Shem last? Could it be we end with the good son, the son showing us no matter how much evil gets, no matter how large it gets, no matter how it consumes, no matter where chaos is in the world, good order will always get the last word. Could it be? I don't know.
That's funny because I was going to bring that up in the story with Noah. Like we get Noah's cursing, but then there is a positive. Like, there's that whole, oh, Noah's not it, but is Shem?
Yeah.
There's that like, but is there?
Yeah.
Right. So
we're still waiting.
It's that upswing.
Yeah. So we're gonna start reading in verse 6 of chapter 10. And I'm going to stop you again. So sorry for the interruptions of the Bible.
Forgiven. And the sons of Ham were Cush and Mizraim and Put and Canaan.
Okay, let's stop right there. Mizraim, in some translations, is Egypt.
Oh.
So you get Cush, which we'll talk about in a second. You get Egypt, which is the father of Egypt. You get Canaan, who is the land of Canaan. So you have Israelites, the first heroes of the story, who just left Egypt's lineage and what Egypt did and what Egypt his line brought, which was slave labor for them for 400 plus years. You move over, they're headed to the land of Canaan, Okay, so like Canaan has their land that they're supposed to have. That's not even fair, right? Like this is all the stuff going on.
Yeah.
So like I mean, this is what's going on. So you're getting major players, you're getting enemies of the Israelites, and this is the original heroes, right? So like they just got released from Egypt, and they're like, oh my gosh, this is where Egypt came from. Ham, you know. That's what they're. I'm assuming that's what they like kind of experience inwardly, at least.
Probably.
Like Ham, really? Come on.
You made that guy? Yeah. So,
Keep going.
continue on in 7. And the sons of Cush were Seba and Havilah and Sabta and Ra'amah and Sabteka. And the sons of Ra'amah were Sheba and Dedan, if I'm saying that right. Now Cush became the father of Nimrod. He became a mighty one on the earth.
Ooh. Let's pause here for a second. So we kind of talked like this is a schism in the family. The family's starting to see. Well, we like they don't know yet, but they come from Shem, and they're gonna like story wise they don't know. Maybe they do, but like within the biblical narrative, we haven't got that yet. But what we do have is like there's just like okay, like these are some enemies, major players happening. There's a schism in the family, schism in the legacy, and like I often thought that schism started with Isaac and Ishmael. Nah, maybe it was Jacob and Esau. No, it really started here. But like, did it, or was it started with Cain and Abel? Right? Like, you see, there is a theme here of brothers fighting, of a schism, of a chasm within a family line that leads to like your decisions matter. Like what it matters, and we'll get there. Ooh, so good. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm so excited about this, but there's another theme here, right? Brother against brother. Like, this is Scar and Mufasa. But the son of the true king would take his rightful place and bring back the goodness of the land. Wait, are we talking Lion King? Or are we talking the Bible?
Yes.
Yes. But wait, isn't the Lion King, like, rooted in... Like, did you know the Lion King is actually Hamlet? It's a retelling of Hamlet?
I think I've heard that.
Wait, are you telling me that all these things hyperlink back to the Bible? It's wild.
There's nothing new under the sun.
That's what Solomon said. That hyperlinks back, right? No, that is but it does. Like, there's nothing, like, this is right here. Like, this story we get of brothers' enmity and their lines got enmity is 100% from a biblical narrative. And there's a reason that it speaks for generations. Because it's true. There's a truth, there's a heavy truth to it. So Cush fathers Nimrod, and Nimrod was the first mighty man. This is the first time we get this mighty man word. So let's stop here again. Like this word mighty, we've seen this word before in Genesis. Can you guess where?
Genesis 6?
Genesis chapter 6, verse 4. Can you turn there?
Yes.
Yeah, I know. We're everywhere today.
Oh, it's like 1 or 2 pages back. That's cool.
Yeah, it's going to take him at least like 10 seconds. All right. Genesis chapter 6, verse 4. And what does it say?
The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. Those were the mighty men who were of old, men of renown. Which also, as we just talked about, was Shem's name.
Oh, wait. You're telling me, wait. So Genesis 6:4, it ends with the literally the name Shem.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the Hebrew word. It's Shem.
Yep.
Wait. So this verse that we read in Genesis chapter 10 is Nimrod, and it's talking about mighty men. So it should call us back to Genesis 4, which then when we get back to Genesis 4, and it hyperlinks back just a few chapters, we get there and we get reminded again of Shem. Like there's a reason this is written the way it's written. Like it reinforces something. Like this is a callback, and the last word is Shem. Shem's name means renown. It's like a slap in the face of Shem is what this is saying. Like you think being renowned is being gracious and compassionate. Nimrod is the exact opposite, and he is a mighty man, not Shem. But like when we were going through genealogies, what's our major tool? Which seed are we following? The seed of the woman, the seed of the serpent. Which seed is this? This is the seed of the serpent. Yeah. Slapping in the face. Mighty men build kingdoms. Men of renown, like the Nephilim, like Nimrod. They build kingdoms. This is a system of the world trying to redefine what renown is, what success is. The seed of the serpent will always redefine ideas to match the agenda of the spirit of the age every single time. Ham's portion of the genealogy points us back so it can tell us where the story is headed. I love how the Bible's written. Like, it points us back to the Nephilim, to Genesis chapter 6, before the flood, to say, guess what? We're headed back there when we follow Nimrod. Because what city does Nimrod found? Keep reading.
Short answer, Babel.
Yeah. Keep reading.
Let's see. So we're left off in verse 9. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Therefore it is said, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before the Lord. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, and Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh, in the land of Shinar. From that land he went forth into Assyria and built Nineveh, and Rehoboth, Ir, and Calah.
Okay, let's stop here. So we have Babel, which we know the next story, Tower of Babel, like that's chaos, that's crazy.
Yep.
But we have Assyria he's a part of. We have the capital city of Assyria is Nineveh. Did you know that? Now you do. During the times, and what's most notable about Nineveh, like when you think Nineveh as someone who reads the Bible sometimes, what do you think about?
I think of Jonah.
Exactly. So side note, this is fun. Jonah is a descendant of Shem. Okay. Cool. And he was called to Nineveh, a city founded by Nimrod, a descendant of Ham.
So his brother.
And he tries to flee to Tarshish, which we skipped over. But if you read Japheth's lineage, Tarshish is a descendant of Japheth.
Wow.
Like, genealogies are so cool when you get the whole story, right? When you get the context of everything, you understand things like, what is going on
That's
here?
crazy.
Like, he's called to be like a man of God, and he tries to run to the son who's kind of an afterthought. Because he's worried about the lineage, the descendants of Ham. So good, so good. Anyway, let's keep reading.
So interesting.
Let's keep reading.
There's a boat and water in that story too, but whatever.
There is. There's boat, water, fish. There's chaos. There's so much going on. There's actually there's a lot there. There's expected order, and then there's a little bit of
tree.
There's a tree, and there's a little bit of a tragedy because like even after everybody gets saved, like Jonah is frustrated.
People do get saved. Jonah's frustrated again. Yeah. So there's so much.
So interesting. It's like it hyperlinks back to something I've
Weird.
read recently.
So weird. Continuing on.
Yeah.
All right. Verse 12. And resin between Nineveh and Calah, this is the great city. And Mizraim became the father of Ludim and Anamim and Lehabim and Nephtuhim.
So good with those names.
Yeah, you love me for making me read this. and Pathruzim and Kasluhim, from which came the Philistines.
Ooh, those are bad guys, right? Remember what David said? You uncircumcised Philistine! It's like one of my favorite lines in the whole biblical text. All right, keep going.
And Caphtorim.
Okay.
And Canaan became the father of Sidon, his firstborn, and Heth, and the Jebusite, and the Amorite, and the Girgashite, and the Hivite, and the Archite, and the Sinite.
Yeah, all the ites.
And the Arvadite, and the Zemarite, and the Hamathite. And afterward, the families of the Canaanite were spread abroad. And the territory of the Canaanite extended from Sidon as you go toward Gerar, as far as Gaza, as you go toward Sodom and Gomorrah, and Admah and Zeboim, as far as Lasha.
Perfect. All right. We even have Gaza in there, and that's relevant today.
It is.
How far? This is where it starts.
Yeah. How far am I going?
You're good. That's good. And the other cities, regions, you have all the ites that come up later on. The Amorites are constantly battling against to keep their land, to get to their land. You have Sodom and Gomorrah mentioned. That's going to come up a little bit later, isn't it?
Yep.
Like, this genealogy is setting us up for all the major players that the Israelites are about to experience or their history has already experienced. And this is the seed of the serpent.
Hmm.
This is Capulets and Montagues. This is saying these are the Capulets, these are the Montagues. Oh no, Shakespeare reference number 2. A plague on both your houses. Do you have any comments, Chase?
Yeah, what's that quote from for the listeners?
Oh, that is from Romeo and Juliet.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just wanted people to know. That's all.
So far we've seen the seed of the serpent, and it's pointing us to chaos over and over in many ways. Going backwards, pointing to chaos, pointing forward in the text to chaos. So it's constant hyperlink circles and things going on. So what is expected next? Genesis chapter 11. We're not going to read it, but in Genesis 11, chaos has to be expected because we're pointing that way. We're going that way. The genealogy culminates at the Tower of Babel. And that's where we'll pick up next episode, the Tower of Babel and Shem's legacy. But as we finish today, I want to leave you with this thought. Your actions will affect the next generation. Like, you may be living in the effect of your parents' actions, whether good or bad.
Yeah.
And I know some of you had some terrible parents probably that are listening. Some of you maybe had the best parents in the world. There's a whole like spectrum there. But Ham and Shem had the same parents. Noah was definitely far from perfect, but they each chose to walk down a different path. Ham chose to go down the path of the serpent, while Shem chose to go down the path, the seed of the woman. In Deuteronomy, it says, I've presented you 2 options, life and death. Choose life. Like there's always, like, no matter what your parents have done or didn't do or how great they were, you have the option to choose one of these paths. Just because your parents are great doesn't mean you choose. Just because your parents love God and went to church all the time doesn't mean you automatically just get to choose the path of the seed of the woman. Sometimes you still choose the path of this, and sometimes you go back and forth within a day or a month, right? But like, you get that choice. No, your choices today and the path you choose directly affects the next generation.
Yeah.
Like, the choice that Ham chose affected his generations, and the choice that Shem does affects his generations. And now there's always redemption available. Like, that is the promise. There's always hope, no matter what your family situation was, no matter how dysfunctional it was. And I don't know if it was as dysfunctional as brothers killing brothers, sons lying to fathers, maybe castrated, and prodigal sons running away from their problems. I don't know if it was that dysfunctional, maybe. But the biblical family we get is pretty dysfunctional.
Yeah.
But there's redemption always possible. Just possible if we choose to live with compassion like Shem. If we choose to cover shame versus like mock it, versus hate it, versus do something even worse.
Yeah.
Like, if we choose to partner with God to repairing and restoring the relationships, because we're gonna fast forward and we're not gonna it's for another episode, but Joseph gets this choice, and he has both paths because he's created one path of the seed of the serpent, of just enmity and just mad and bitter at his brother for selling him and all the stuff that happened, and he breaks down and he chooses the path that Shem laid so many years before, of forgiveness, of covering, of it's let's come together now.
Yeah.
And so, like, I want to remind you that, like, that is a takeaway from this story in Genesis 9 and 10. Like, this is a takeaway. Like, your decisions matter, and you can choose one way or the other, but the choice is yours according to God.
Yeah, I think this ties back to a lot of like what we've talked about in the past, which is like, are you choosing to live in heaven or hell, life or death, abundance versus lack? And like, we all have these moments in where we choose one or the other all the time. And this kind of hits home for me literally. Whereas like just real talk for a second, like this week even with having like kids in the house and I like my attitude, or even just like my posture. I'd say the posture of your heart, like out of the mouth the heart speaks. But when you're living life on a daily basis, and even not the words you speak, even I'm very good at typically like not saying too much, but when I do speak and I'm in those states of like lack or death, really, where I'm looking at everything from a point of view that's like, I don't have enough, or this is bothering me, or I can't believe I chose to do this. And I get in these bad habits of that, where I see all the wrong that I'm doing, and then it like perpetuates itself, and how that affects, and like waking up the next morning and hearing from the kids, like, yeah, the vibe in the house was really weird yesterday. And you're like, man. So, but then there's always like, I love this story, and I love like even just hearing myself talk. It's like, oh, it's not so much like the bad thing that I chose to do. It's what do I do with that? How do I respond to what I feel is my poor response? So there's always this like, but what will you choose? You know what I mean? So like on these day-to-day bases and these day-to-day lives, like we hear this story and how does it apply to our life? Well, I just sit here and I go, wow, I wasn't really nice to, really the source was like I wasn't being nice to myself, and it poured out over onto kids and the next generation literally, and they noticed. And so like that calls me to go like, oh wow, but what am I going to choose now? I get to look at that and I get to read the story and go, wow, I wasn't very kind. So I get this next step, like, but Jesus, but like I get to choose life now.
Yeah. Yeah. So good.
Yeah.
And the Bible is an ancient text, but it's eternal. The words are alive. They're living, they're eternal, and they speak to your moment. They speak to our moments.
Yeah.
So I pray that this episode spoke to you. I pray that the words we said somehow got past the headphones into your heart, and that we had the groundwork episode of what versus how. Like this is a moment where it's like this is a what, like this is what happened. This is descriptive. But how should I respond? Like how should my mindset change when I'm confronted with the truth of this description?
Yeah.
And I hope that I wrote it because it's to me too. So, without further ado, Chase, would you wrap us up with those glorious words in Hebrew?
Yivarecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. Ya'er Adonai penavilecha v'yichunecha. Yisa Adonai penavilecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May he make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Shalom. Thanks,
Bye,
guys.
Thanks for embarking on this podcast journey with us at Hyperlink. Your support means the world to us as a listener-supported podcast. If you've enjoyed our episodes and would like to contribute, please consider visiting patreon.com/hyperlinkpodcast. Stay connected with us by joining our community on Facebook at Hyperlink, a podcast journey. If you have any questions or would like to book us for an event, please feel free to email us at hyperlinknigel@gmail.com. Thank you once again for tuning in and being a part of the Hyperlink Collective. See you on the next episode.